What's today? Oh, no, it's not Wednesday. It's Thursday. What the hell? Can we get the schedule going? Really? The Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow's Howzoo, the rated R radio star, here for you, baby. And wow, do we have a lot to get into on this Zomia ONE Underground Wednesday Q&A that's coming out, well, on a Thursday. But, that's life. A lesson I am learning well. So, woo. Anyway. As I said, we've got a lot to get into here. And actually, wow, the response for, of course, you got a triple load this week of Sovereign Tech, just because of scheduling, which, eventually I will get back to normal on that. Because of scheduling, I had to release like 2 episodes of Sovereign Tech pretty much back to back. And anyway, the latest episode came out, which was episode 319, I believe. Episode 319 was, well, we talked a lot about Galactic Quarantine, and I actually got a signal message this morning about that I am going to end up talking about a bit here. We'll get into that. I knew there'd be a lot of questions about that, as well as what the show opened up with. But before I get into that, and we have some tech questions, and we got some, actually, I got an email that, oh, it's dynamite. I can't wait to read it to you. Before we get into that, allow me to get a little, not personal in the way you think I'm going to get personal, but just kind of like, personal, completely first world problem, unimportant matters here. So I guess this was last year, around this time, actually, or maybe closer to June, whatever. I started, well, anyway, a lot of Sovereign Tech listeners know, I have historically over the years been or since I was a kid, really, I've been a huge fan of wrestling. WWE, WCW, ECW, all those cats. And obviously, like, I fell off the wagon for a little while with that. Of course, wrestling is not what it was in the late 90s. It probably never will be that again, as much as like maybe NXT or something like that would try, or there's some other, little operations out there being funded by Saudi princes that, well, anyway. But New Japan Pro Wrestling's still great, right? But, well, anyway, that's a whole other conversation that we're not going to get into here. In the 90s, there was some real magic. In the early aughts, there was some real, it's what, of course, in the WWE is called the Attitude Era. And there was some real magic going on there. I mean, they were pushing the boundaries of what was even possible on television. Certainly a lot of societal boundaries they were pushing. And ironically, The Rock, who I am a big fan of, I do not hide that fact, The Rock, who has been coming out with, he had a deal with Under Armour, and he's been coming out with various, merchandise, like shirts and shoes and headphones and bags and all these other things, that he claims to really put through the test. Now, I've reviewed some of this stuff because last year, when I was in a different situation, I was getting those things, and I loved a lot of it, and I reviewed a lot of it, and I talked about it. I got the headphones, got the shoes, got all this other stuff and whatever. And I just want to talk about this for a couple minutes. So today, when this is getting released, which I think is March 21st, he released his Bend Boundaries. Speaking of, pushing boundaries like the WWE did during the Attitude Era, he released his Bend Boundaries collection. And I'll admit I was a little excited about this, and I'll explain why. But as you can probably guess, I'm not so excited today now that all this stuff has actually come out. So as I said before, when and you can find these in Zomia ONE Underground content where I reviewed like The Rock's headphones, which are actually great. I don't know if I necessarily reviewed the shoes. I'm sure I talked about them during a Q&A or something like that, because that's where I can get in a lot of the little stuff that I talk about these things. But anyway, everything that I've gotten pretty much, from The Rock's deal with Under Armour, their little conglomeration that they've been engaging in, I've been very pleased with. And he did a few other releases, and I talked about these releases over time where like he'd release a new color of his headphones, or he did I even purchased when he did his 11/11 release back in November. I purchased some of the stuff from that. Again, I've been fairly happy with all of it, even though I don't know if my head's bigger than The Rock's. I don't want to make any claims here, but like one of the reasons I felt confident in buying shit that The Rock, claims to have tested out, in the Iron Paradise in his gym, right, is that, well, if it fits The Rock, it's got to fit me, right? Because the guy wears a size 15 shoe. The guy has, very large body, right? He's about 3 inches taller than I am. I think he's 6'4", I'm 6'1". And I figure he has a fairly big head. Now, the hat that I got fits pretty good, and I wear it often enough, and I put a little imperial flag on it instead of an American flag, which, well, that's ironic. Anyway, so regardless, I've liked most of it, and I was really excited for this, and he's been talking it up, and he shows, like, on his Instagram page or on his Twitter, for over a year now, he's been showing all these different products that he says he's testing out for Under Armour, and that, for a Project Rock collection and everything, which is what he calls his, his deal that he's made with Under Armour, where they release brand stuff under him and, and Under Armour, of course, in conjunction. And a lot of this stuff I've been waiting for. I'm like, all right, when is this going to come out? Like, there's some really cool things like a towel that is always dry, a lot of this other stuff. And I don't know if maybe he actually tested it and this shit just doesn't actually work. And so he says, fine, you can't put my name on it, which if so, very honorable of The Rock. I mean, I think this is why a lot of people like The Rock, because he seems so genuine and he seems to understand who and what he is, that you don't take him too seriously, right? That he's very self-aware of his branding and what he's about. And you can see this in his movies. And I love his movies. I mean, I really, really do. In fact, it'd be fun, maybe first from some Zomia ONE Underground, some extra content. It'd be fun to do like a ranking of The Rock's, of The Rock's movies, like The Rock's greatest films, do like a top 8, because he has so fucking many. I mean, the guy just doesn't seem to stop. Anyway, so I was getting pretty excited for this, and I wanted to see, all right, what's The Rock offering right now? And I took a look, and I was just so unimpressed. There was nothing that felt like an advancement. In fact, the new shoes he released are really just shoes that Under Armour already offers. They're called Hover, HOVR, or Hover Phantoms is the full name, that they already offer. And in fact, when I read about them, I'm like, whoa, these are terrifying. They have like a Bluetooth chip built into these shoes. They're made for running, which is ironic because also The Rock doesn't run that much, Anyway, there's no way I was getting those new shoes. Not happening for a bunch of reasons. But, one of them is that you are not going to get me to buy a pair of shoes with fucking Bluetooth in them. You got to be kidding me. Okay, so there's your tech angle on this. but I'm looking at everything, and there's some of the stuff is really great. Like, I spent a stupid amount of money on a water bottle that is like all metal and everything. I mean, and it was... you could say, oh yeah, well, $30 for a water bottle, that's pretty common. Let's just say it was well over double that. And it had the Rock branding, but it was great because it's a big water bottle. Again, it's all metal, and it has this strap around it where you can put your wallet and you can put your smartphone and you can put your keys and your lock in there. Okay. Or maybe lock for like a locker at the gym or something. And there's a little, what do you call it there? Not a carabiner, but basically like a key ring clip that you can kind of put stuff on there. And you'd be amazed at how handy that is, because the last thing you want to be doing is in a gym is working out and having your, wallet falling out of your pocket and, or having your keys jangle or whatever in your pocket. Maybe, I don't know, you do something stupid on a squat. I mean, who knows? So, and certainly your smartphone, you don't want to have to keep that in hand. And so it's super fucking handy to have these. And actually he released like a canteen that was significantly cheaper. It was plastic though, but they had the same setup where you can like slide all this stuff into your, into it, and you can carry it around you at the gym or with you at the gym. And that way all that stuff's with you and it's just on your water bottle. It's brilliant. It's really an advancement. In fact, as soon as I got it, I'm like, wow, this is fucking great when you're going to the gym. It holds everything for you, or if you're just going on a hike, it holds everything for you. Thing's practically indestructible. This is great. His bag had a lot of really, he had a Project Rock bag that had a lot of really cool, ideas built into it, and it could hold your laptop. It was a gym bag and all. There was just a lot of really cool shit about it. You can look at it. You can go to Under Armour's site and you can take a look. Some of that stuff is still available. Some of it's not. Some of it is long gone, which I guess maybe that makes it kind of limited edition. I don't know. But anyway, the point being is that his products, like the shoes I got, were great. His products were really delivering, I felt. And now it all just seems like a fucking, I'm not seeing anything that's advancing. He has, there's shirts, but they're just shirts, and they're Under Armour shirts that you could get. Maybe they have the Rock symbol on it, but really, so the fuck what? Give me something that the Rock thought of and came up with and, really put out there in conjunction. His headphones, the Project Rock headphones, those are still, like you can still get those. In fact, that's where it started to really show, was that his Project Rock headphones, he was releasing not new headphones over the past year, but just different colors of the model. And he's like, oh, this is a really big deal. Look at this. This comes in yellow now. And it's like, all right, Rock, now you're just getting ridiculous. Now this really is just turning into a marketing scheme and it's horseshit. I'm not feeling like you're advancing training in any real way anymore. And that's how I felt. And you kept talking about how, the Ben Boundaries collection, this is the biggest drop ever. And like, there's like a shaving bag, and it's just a fucking shaving bag. But it has the Brahma Bull symbol on the side of it. There's nothing like unique about it. He has some other stuff, some other bags where, it's shit you could get anywhere. And there's nothing really, there's nothing really unique about it. There's nothing that really forwards your training, in my opinion. I was really fucking annoyed. I don't know what the hell's happening here, but I am not going to get excited about a Project Rock drop like ever again. You never say never, but I just can't imagine it, because I'm like, well, what the fuck is this guy doing? The products he's coming out with are, it all feels run of the mill and meaningless. And I'm not impressed at all. Like those hover shoes, like I said, there's no way you're going to get me putting on a pair of shoes with Bluetooth in them. It's like, oh, it can connect to this app and give you a bunch of stats on your runs and everything. And I don't know, the only stats on runs I need are when my ass is, sorry. Okay. Anyway, I feel like wiping my ass with this Project Rock stuff. I'm really disappointed, because I felt like The Rock was a genuine guy, and now it really all it feels like a cash grab, and it's just like fancy t-shirts. Again, nothing really new, nothing really unique, to what maybe what The Rock, put through the paces or something like that. I'm not feeling that. And like I said, there's a lot of products that I know he's been showing off on Instagram for over a year. None of that's been released yet. It took a while for the headphones to finally hit market. I understand. And they're great. Like, they're genuinely great. But I don't know. Maybe in the future he'll do another drop and it'll actually be something new. But I was really disappointed. In fact, some of the other stuff too, like he even gave different names for things that would eventually end up coming out. Like, I think he was talking about like new Project Rock 2s, like, cause there's the Rock 1s, and I think he was going to come out with Rock 2s. Instead, it just ended up being these hover shoes, which I don't really run either. I like, I can run, and I can make it a part of my routine, but yeah, not with the fucking Bluetooth, not a goddamn chance. So anyway, thank you for listening to me for about 10 minutes about all of that. We have plenty more to talk about. And in fact, before I get into a funny email that I got, I want to read this off. This is in response to episode 319 of Sovereign Tech, where we're talking specifically about the issues around the concept that aliens are engaging in galactic quarantine against humanity. I would argue that it's against, even though some people would say that it's more protective. But let me read what just this great patron and longtime supporter of the show that I just really appreciate him. Let me read what he said here. Galactic quarantine. I've heard of this many years ago and believed in it. Still kind of do. He puts that in parens. It tied into a spiritual perspective I had at the time, and again, kind of still do. I just don't believe that there's a lot of life out there, let alone aliens doing their alien things. So I don't know. Did I mention Adventism in episode 319? I don't remember if I specifically brought that up. But when I was initially talking over with someone about what I wanted to say about the whole galactic quarantine article in Forbes. And again, this was in Forbes. Okay. We're not reading from ancientorigins.net or any horseshit like that. Okay. Like this is serious stuff. Anyway, I don't know if I mentioned Adventist, but I'm going to bring that up when I finish reading through this, because I think it points at maybe what he was thinking of from the spiritual perspective. I think I did. I think I talked about that in the book of Job, how there's like a galactic council. I think I brought that up, but anyway, let me keep reading here. He says, I just don't believe there's a lot of life out there, let alone aliens doing their alien things. But I think there is some other life out there, and I kind of think humanity is being ignored due to our less than pleasant nature. I don't know. The quarantine I'm mentioning was both physical and extra physical. To be fair, this kind of goes along with that old school Men in Black bullshit. What I really think is that we've had advanced civilizations in Earth's history, and that there may have been contact with comparable spacefaring beings. And then shit went down, and here we are. Okay, so this listener, again, a longtime listener I know of Sovereign Tech. Yeah, I mean, I'm at points in this, I'm in line with you. So first off, I want to talk about the spiritual thing, the idea of galactic quarantine being like from a spiritual perspective. So Seventh-day Adventists actually, I mean, just like in any Christian, particularly any Christian denomination, you still have like differing opinions on things. Like some people are Calvinist, others are more hyper Calvinist, but they would still call themselves Baptists, right? In Adventism, there are differing opinions as well, because that's a very, very large denomination within Christianity, and I assume it still is anyway, even though I haven't been an Adventist in a very long time. But regardless of that, part of my life, I was an Adventist. I did grow up Adventist. I was initially Jewish, then, things change. And I mean, Adventism is pretty much Jewish light with Jesus in it. I mean, that's a very simple way of saying it, but really Seventh-day Adventism, there's so much more to it. It's a very long conversation, but Adventists have no problem believing. In fact, my father, he had no problem believing that, and did believe that the Bible explicitly states, and that also, of course, the prophetess within Adventism, which kind of gives it its uniqueness, or one of its unique aspects, also agreed that there was life on other worlds. Like that's not a crazy thing to say to, within, if you go to an SDA church, Seventh-day Adventist church, that's not a crazy thing to say. They would argue, though, that while, yes, there are other worlds and Jesus is like Prince of all the worlds. Okay, like that's kind of what they'd say. And they'd also reference how at the beginning of Job, it does seem like there's this galactic council going on that God is talking with. Who exactly is this galactic council? Is it angels? Probably, the assumption is that it's not. Of course, in the book of Job, we can get into a whole other conversation around that, because I debate whether or not that's originally a quote unquote Jewish or at least rabbinical text, or or even Christian. I debate, because Job is so old. I wonder if it belonged to something else. But anyway, so yeah, so the idea that there's like this galactic council and that it's not with angels, that God's talking maybe to some other species or something at the beginning of that. I mean, that's something that's not an unoriginal idea. Now, the thing is, though, is that, or the argument goes, is that because, I mean, what an Adventist would basically tell you is that, yeah, sure, there's other life out there, but like they've never been here. In fact, they claim that UFOs are the demonic, and they're not the only ones to claim that. There have actually been Senate committees, United States Senate committees that have investigated the UFO phenomenon. And in fact, the guy that they had who investigate that, he came to the conclusion, this was back in the 70s, I think, he came to the same conclusion. He's like, yeah, a lot of this is BS, a lot of this is faked, but some of this defies some explanation. And the only explanation he could come up with is that it was the demonic, or at the very least, the supernatural. And so Adventism actually, I actually learned about that from a Seventh-day Adventist pastor who's a friend of mine growing up. And his name's actually Doug Batchelor. You can look into him. He's a very intelligent guy. I'll give credit where credit's due. I mean, Adventism's whatever, it's fucking insane. But Doug Batchelor is a very, very intelligent guy. I'm not going to take anything away from him. Anyway, so they would argue that the UFO phenomenon is actually the demonic. It's a product of Satan, and so on. And so so they're saying it's not aliens. Okay, that's all trickery. And the reason they say it's not aliens is because they claim that no alien, kind of similar to this galactic quarantine idea, no alien would even want to look at Earth, because no other life in the universe has experienced sin. No other life has engaged in the mystery of iniquity. No other life has, ever defied God like Satan did, or like Adam and Eve did. So so I mean, to some degree, there's a galactic quarantine. Now, it's different in that sense. Like I didn't equate. I mean, I kind of talked about it, I think, in episode 319, and I know I talked to someone about it previously, but I didn't equate that with the concept of galactic quarantine, because galactic quarantine feels like where, there's like ships making sure no one dare comes this way, as to where, with what Adventists think, it's more, no, they just don't want to know. It's not like they are actively keeping us from getting to space or joining the Galactic Club. They just don't want us, they just don't want, they're not interested in us at all. They want nothing to do with us. So yeah, I mean, the spiritual concept, I can see where that qualifies as a galactic quarantine, is that, like that it would almost be mentally a quarantine zone. Like, no, we don't look there. I mean, it's almost like, think of it like a galactic version of Chernobyl, but instead of nuclear weapons, it's sin, right? And nobody wants to go there. We know it's there, but nobody wants to go there. No one wants to know what, what bastardizations of creation are being created there because, damn it, how could somebody ever stand against God, right? Like, I mean, that's the way that they think and that they explain that theory. So sure, in that sense, it is kind of a galactic quarantine. I can see that. I wasn't exactly thinking about it that way, but I mean, that kind of thought did cross my mind, that's sort of a play, a variation on the idea of galactic quarantine, as it relates to the zoo hypothesis, right? Because they're really kind of kissing cousins of theories. So anyway, this person, I agree. He talking about that, the spiritual perspective. There it is. Then there's this. I just don't believe there is a lot of life out there. Yeah, I'm with you on that. In fact, in Judaism, it's very specifically claimed that there are only 18,000 habitable worlds in the entire universe. But the claim seems to be is that there's life on each one. So in the entirety of the universe, there are only 18,000 different species, or conscious species. I guess that's what they would argue. Again, we're not talking about animal life. We're not talking about single-celled organisms. I mean, that shit's bacteria. That shit's all over the place. I'm not saying that. But as far as like sapient life, I think that's very rare. But yeah, I mean, that's a concept within Judaism. Of course, Mormonism has its own has its own games to play within that as well. But as far as, I mean, like when you die, you end up getting your own solar system or your own universe. And oh boy, anyway, that gets to a whole other places. What he says at the end here, just to comment on that, what I really think is that we've had advanced civilizations in Earth's history and that there may have been contact with comparable spacefaring beings. And then shit went down and here we are. Yeah. I don't know about the contact with comparable spacefaring beings, but the idea that we had advanced, like technologically advanced human civilizations in the past, on the order of over 100,000 years ago, perhaps even, or somewhere in there, or maybe even, maybe not even that far, but in that range. Yeah, I'm open to that. I mean, and I'm open to the idea that the Toba supervolcano wiped all this shit out. I mean, when you say technologically advanced, I mean, did they have, I don't know, cold fusion? I don't know. Do they have like all these kind of wild powers, energy technologies and everything? I don't know about that. But I mean, I'm not dismissing it either. But yeah, I think we have had, really advanced civilizations in the past, and we have some holdovers from that. Like maybe what I was talking about with the Book of Job, maybe that's a holdover from a very long time ago. The Ankh. There's a lot of there are a lot of things that I think when we don't really know the origins of certain things, a lot of times I think it's because the origins are from before the wall of history that archaeology seems to have and seems to artificially put on humanity. And we constantly run into things all the time that fuck with that wall of history. Göbekli Tepe is one of them, and so on. That clearly there were civilizations of some kind well before Sumer, which is where the average archaeologist and anthropologist would tell you that human civilization started. And of course, they run into the problem of, boy, it didn't just start. Like, like somebody really, really, really pulled the pulley on that, or, the cable on that engine, because man, it started with a bang. Like, and I don't mean a big bang. I mean, but it was a big bang as far as like within, culturally, because suddenly, boom, there's just this fucking culture, and suddenly there's Uruk, and you have all these different cities that are just somehow just suddenly cities. Like somebody just had a brilliant, a moment of brilliance, and they're like, we shall invent culture out of fucking nowhere. Same thing with the Egyptians. It's the same exact story where holy shit, like, there's no, they went from A to E with no BCD. And how the fuck did they pull that off? Right. So yeah, anytime we really don't know the origin of something, like when we really don't have a clear cut sign. I mean, there's plenty of reasons to not have a clear cut sign, but in my opinion, I think it's because it came from well before. So, but that's a whole other conversation, really, as far as that goes. Yeah. So the Galactic Quarantine, yeah, not like a new idea. I think the idea that we are actively being kept from, discovering truths about the universe, which is basically what these guys at Medi, or what the one guy anyway, at least at Medi, was claiming. That I hadn't really heard before in that sense. And like I said, that's very different from the Prime Directive, right? Because that's saying, no, we're actively, we're not just going to not interfere. We're going to make it so that you can't get anywhere. Like we're going to make it that bad. Now, I mean, that kind of concept, I guess that too could play into, if one wanted to translate it that way, that could play into more of that Christian concept or Adventist concept that I was talking about earlier. And I don't think Adventists are the only ones that think that way, by the way. But, where maybe God is really much like, he put an angel with a flaming sword at the gate of Eden, or the gate of the garden near of Eden. Again, it wasn't just Eden, it was the Garden of Eden. Maybe he's got his galactic version of, the cherubim or whatever, flaming sword, keeping anybody from getting here. So I suppose it could kind of fit in that way, but that's a lot of leaps that, add on a lot of story compared to what little, nuggets of possibilities get even remotely described in Torah, or even in the New Testament. So anyway, the Galactic Quarantine, interesting. I'm terrified that people think that this is something that advanced species would do. A lot of people were wondering, and you could have just clicked on the link in the show notes. A lot of people were wondering who gave that opening narration at the beginning of the episode of episode 319. That was Isaac Asimov. And it was from a talk in 1978 that was actually like an hour long, and I just took about the last 5 minutes or so. But he really hit the nail on the head that, humans have to become adults to be able to even go out there. And that's the thing, is that while I think, intelligence, to claim that intelligence operates and consciousness operates the same way on every planet with every species that's out there in the universe, I think that's, well, as I said in the show, that's outrageous to claim that sort of thing. But I always did kind of buy the argument that if you're able to get to the stars, really get to the stars and really get out there and not just like set up, satellites in space or even little space stations here and there, but like really get out there and start quote unquote colonizing or inhabiting other celestial bodies, I think you kind of have to have a peaceful nature to really make that a success. And that's where Asimov, I think, was spot on. He says, like, if you have 150 different geographic territories that each one claims that they're more important than the fucking other, you're not going to get anywhere. And I agree. You're really not. I mean, that kind of competition and hubris and arrogance can only take you so far. And I think that's why honestly, in my opinion, this is why there haven't been a whole lot of advancements that's why we're not on Mars yet. That's why we're not exactly on the moon yet. That's why we're not exactly, as far as inhabiting them. That's why we're not in a lot of these different areas, because that meant that short-sighted, primitive human concept, that being nationalism, patriotism, and so on, that, we've taken that to its potential limit, that competition between nations. We've taken that, the space race and all this, we've taken that to the limit of what it can allow us to do. Okay, of how far in the sky, how far in the stars it can get us to. We've got to grow up a little bit further to allow it to get to the next level, to get it to get it further. So anyway, that's just a theory of mine. I'm not saying that that's like some kind of grand truth. All right. But that's my thoughts on the matter. And I think Asimov would share that. So anyway, but yeah, if you're wondering what that was, it was him. And I didn't put that in until after I recorded. So that's why I didn't reference it, even though, ironically, he hit on a lot of, like, even the taxation, like a lot of things that I said. Amazingly, there was a lot of, granted, I've been, reading Asimov my whole life. And I can, if there were a holy man, he'd be one of them, in my book. So, for my thought process to be somewhat in line with his, not outrageous. Even though, fortunately Asimov will gladly admit when he is wrong, because he knows he's been wrong at times, especially with predictions, as well as he'll admit when he contradicts himself, and he knows that he engages in some contradiction at points. So anyway, all of that said, there you go. There's a little comment on Galactic Quarantine. Let's move on to another subject. Let's get into a pretty funny email that I got, and I've gotten a bunch of these. And there's some other ones too. I'll probably share because there's variations on a theme. I mean, look, people getting spammy emails. I mean, that's been around as long as there's been email. The Nigerian prince scams, right? I mean, those are infamous, well known. And I mean, it's pretty much a cultural meme. A lot of these kinds of emails, and as well as malware, have really, their game has stepped up ever since, honestly, Bitcoin has been a thing. Ever since cryptocurrencies became a thing, and there's a really, really anonymous way, or potentially anonymous way of sending money. Now that, again, it's a thing, and it's become far more prevalent. And this is one, I can't believe it. And first off, let me explain that I received the first of these, I want to say like on March 2nd, maybe, and today is March 21st. That has bearing based upon what gets said in this email, but this is the email that I got. And it looks like, it's hilarious. It looks like it was sent to me, by my own email address. Okay, that's what it looks like. Here it is. Bitcoin Ransom. Okay. Hi, this is how the email reads. Hi, your account is infected. Renew your password this time. You might not know anything about me, and you really are probably wondering for what reason you're receiving this particular email proper. I'm a hacker who opened your email, and again, there's some spacing issues here, so maybe it's copy and paste. I'm a hacker, and sorry, I can't get over that. All right, let me stop on this for a second. Nobody that really is worth their salt in the hacking, in these more black hat hackers, right? Whatever. They don't just come on, hey, I'm a hacker, like nobody says that. Nobody ever says that shit. You can want to, if you want, you can kind of claim that. The people that like to claim that they're hackers are the people that are more like just who write software, and they agree with, the use of the term, not even white hat or gray hat. They just think that there's someone that changes the way something was, in the way something functions, differing from the way that it was designed. Okay. And it has like the symbol, right? With like the 5 or 6 dots, whatever that has this. Those are the only people really that come out and say they're hackers. Everybody else, anybody that was actually in the cypherpunk movie, or not movie, movement in the 90s, okay, or in the 80s and all of this, that were doing, the real beauty of the bod kind of stuff. They'll never tell you that they're a fucking hacker. They won't talk about it. They don't talk about it. I mean, if anything, if somebody really seriously actually did some genuine shit, you know what they would do? They'd never say they were a hacker, 1. And 2, when they start talking to you, they probably pull your phone out of their hands and they pull their own phone out, smartphone, and they toss it in a microwave, and then maybe they'd start talking about it or something like that. I mean, you got to understand that culture, humans, again, we're not ready to go to space. I mean, I'll admit that. We don't need aliens holding us down. We're just not fucking ready. So stupid. Anyway, reading on. I'm a hacker who opened your email and digital devices several months ago. It will be a time wasting to try. That's exactly how it's read. It will be a time wasting to try to communicate with me or to try to find me. It is definitely not possible because I directed you an email from your own account that I've hacked. I've started MalwareSoft on the adult vids porno site, and suppose that you have spent time on this site to enjoy it. You know what I really mean. What does he mean? That I've gone to a porno site? The Golden Stallion has gone to a porno? He's watched porn? Oh, rue the day. Reading on. While you were paying attention to these quote-unquote great vids, Your browser started out functioning as a RDP, remote control, that have a, or it doesn't say has, I was correcting him, that have a keylogger that granted me authority to access your display and webcam. Then my programs I don't know what this exactly is. Programs told all, maybe told all. I don't know. Stole. And then my program stole all information. There it is. You have entered passwords on the websites you visited. I sniffed them. Of course, you'll be able to modify each of them or already modified them. It goes on. Even so, it does not matter. My spyware updates needed data regularly. What did I do? I got a backup of the system, of each file and contacts. I got a dual screen record. The one section demonstrates the video you were observing. It says in parentheses, you've the perfect taste, haha, parentheses. And the second part displays the recording from your own camera. What exactly do you have to do? Good. I believe 1,000 USD will be a good amount of money for our little secret. You'll make the payment by Bitcoins. Bitcoins, yeah. If you don't know this, try to find, quote, how to buy Bitcoin, end quote, in Google, because hackers recommend Google. My Bitcoin wallet address, and then there's a wallet address here. It is case sensitive, so copy and paste it. Important, you have only 2 days in order to make the payment. I have an exclusive pixel in this email, and at this time, I know that you've read through this email. To track the reading of a message and actions within it, I utilize a Facebook pixel. Thanks to them, that which is applied for, the authorities may also help us. In case I fail to get the Bitcoins, I will immediately transfer your video to each of your contacts, such as family members, colleagues, and many more, question mark at the end of it. And that's it. That's the email. Now, I mean, obviously this is hilarious. So first off, if the email was actually from my email, it wouldn't have been in the spam folder, which is where it was. I mean, then there's a bunch of these. Second off, like I said, the first one of these came on like March 2nd. It is March 21st. It has been well past 2 days. Granted, I don't really talk to my family much, or but like colleagues and other people, there's certainly plenty of people, and I'm well enough, or, I'm somewhat internet famous, and there's plenty of people to to show whatever, he claims to have gotten about me off to someone. Third, you didn't get jack shit off of any webcam of mine because I don't have a webcam that in any way is plugged in or that doesn't have a sticker on. Like, never. You don't understand. I even on laptops, I use USB, like separate webcams that I plug in. You're never going to see that. And on other laptops, I even cut the fucking wires. The webcam is ripped out. Like, I mean, there's no video to be had other than video that I've actually recorded and done. Sure as fuck no video of me like jerking off. And also to boot, I mean, this person clearly doesn't know shit about me because go ahead, like I wanted to respond. I mean, I kind of wish I had his email because I wanted to respond and say, please, would you release the video of me? I mean, show the world my dick. You think I'm ashamed of that? You've got the wrong guy. I don't care. Make me famous, frankly. I don't want to boast. But my dick might even be able to do that. I mean, go ahead, put it out there. I love this. It's so cute. It's just the cutest little fucking email. I mean, what a joke. There's another one that I got that claimed to be from the CIA and all this. I mean, you gotta, oh man, I'll share that with you another time. But I thought this was just so goddamn funny. I mean, the English was horrible. Everything about it was just ridiculous. And folks, I'm just putting this out there for you because obviously there was a lot of copy and paste action in this. If you get this kind of email, stop. Don't worry. Relax. Like this isn't real. Like all of this is super basic shit. It's nonsense. And also, I mean, if you are worried about somebody seeing, I mean, also go ahead. Like, even if you had my history of the porn I've ever watched, go for it. Which, also the problem there is that honestly, like if I even have porn, that's all on local hard drives, baby. again, wrong guy. But yeah, if you're worried about your webcams, well, like, yeah, put tape over your webcams, be very conscious of that and everything. That way, when they claim to have the stuff. I mean, this is like Black Mirror bullshit, I mean, it really is. But I got a good chuckle out of it when I was reading it. I'm like, oh, it's just, I love the way the guy talks. Don't try to find me. Don't try. I mean, and there was like more, like this email kept, I mean, so I'm guessing it was like an auto generate. There was more that just kind of, kept coming out. It doesn't even really mention my name. It's just obviously pulling off of an email list. And, yeah, like there might be a couple more of these from a day ago, in my email address. It just keeps coming and coming and coming. And it's fucking hilarious. So, because again, I don't care. Put out whatever the fuck you want about me. I have no shame. Like I have none. You're talking to the guy, you are emailing the guy who is ready for the world where people no longer wear clothes, and where sex is happening very, very openly. Like you just don't know who you're talking to. I don't care. All right. So anyway, I thought that was humorous. I thought I'd share it with you. And also, if you're getting this and you're sweating it at all, don't sweat it. Like it's not real, not in the slightest. So, all right, let's get on to a little tech question here. And, I just want to put it out there. I still haven't figured out where I want to talk about this, but I got a great message from a patron about an interview with Paul Rosenberg that was why crypto anarchy is not a revolutionary movement. I really want to talk about that and break that down. That might be an entire Wednesday Q&A when I do that, or I might still do it as part of a Prime episode. But I just want to let everyone know that's something that's coming because I've been really excited about it. And it was originally posted on Patreon well before Zomia ONE, the Zomia ONE Underground was a thing. And I really want to visit this and talk about that, but we won't do that here. Let's move on to, again, the tech question that I had. What's the best way to encrypt the stuff on my NAS? Veracrypt, BitLocker, something else? I say Veracrypt straight up. Unless you are, I mean, if you're doing, so like with BitLocker, if you're doing a Windows home server, which that was a thing. In fact, I'm kind of disappointed that Microsoft backed away from that because that was in many ways their attempt at a NAS was it was called like Windows Home Server. I think that was the name of it. And I think they've pretty much canceled that ever since like Windows 10 or whatever. That's still out there. And that does have BitLocker built into it. If you were using that as basically a NAS, I think that's an absolutely fine, like BitLocker. I mean, look, if the NSA is coming after you, you're screwed, right? If you're targeted, you're screwed. I think BitLocker does fairly well, and it works really well, obviously, with Windows. And especially if you have if you're running Windows and you run into machine downtimes, there have been issues in the past with various hard drives, especially more traditional hard drives instead of solid state, along with others, where booting up with Veracrypt created really long boot times, and that can be mission critical. So BitLocker with Windows is a fine and wonderful thing to be running. Okay, but actually on your NAS, Veracrypt works very nicely with a NAS, and I totally recommend Veracrypt pretty much across the board for any encryption. In fact, Veracrypt, I think Sandstorm bakes in Veracrypt automatically. Like if you're going through sandstorm.io, if you're setting up a NAS style system with that, it plays well with all of that. So yeah, I would totally run with Veracrypt as far as that goes. So, or something else to consider is Resilio, which is not. It's by BitTorrent, or it's by it was BitTorrent Sync, which was never really a fully open sourced file protocol or protocol that allowed you a transfer file protocol. File transfer protocol. Sorry. I would consider Resilio because Resilio encrypts between automatically, if I'm not mistaken. So if you're wanting to do file transfer between devices with a NAS that is encrypted, I mean, yeah, it's not 100% open source. That's where Veracrypt comes in handy, but also Veracrypt comes with a lot of convenience challenges, shall we say. Resilio is something to look into for your NAS, and Resilio works on just about any platform. They even have a version for Synology, but they have versions for other NAS software as well. I recommend looking into that as well. That might be a solution that can make your life a little easier and is encrypting a lot of the traffic going on, as far as like between devices to access those files. So something to consider there. Also, I mean, I talked about it on this recent episode of Sovereigntech. Was it privacystorage.io? You might be able to implement that in a NAS because that is completely open source software. And that finally gets released. That might be an intriguing option to go with as well as far as client-side encryption between devices. And that is completely open source. If they come out with a version of that can work with your NAS and like say they sold the software or like a software license or something with it, that could be a very interesting proposition as well. But yeah, in general, just get very friendly with VeraCrypt because it's everywhere and it works with everything, to answer that. So, okay, I'm going to read this question. I saved it for the end and then we will get into our Elm of the Week, which we've got a doozy to get into. Anyway, let me get on this about Zomia One. I know there's been a lot of questions of how to become a part of the Zomia One Underground. Do I have to use PodBean and so on? And I want to address that here. So I'll just read it. Hi, Brian. Hey, Brian. Love what you're doing with Zomia One. I can't wait to hear some of the new podcasts and see what other shows you bring in. I was checking out PodBean on my computer and couldn't figure out how to sign up for the premium content. I don't see the premium content button in the left sidebar that PodBean says I should. Can I only do this on my phone? All right, I want to stop there let me read on. I have an older Moto G that has very little space on it, so I try to avoid installing any new apps. Plus, I don't listen to anything on my phone. I listen to everything on an iPod. I don't even use iTunes. I download to my computer and then move it onto the iPod. PodBean makes it sound like premium content is only available on the app, but I can see it in the feed on my computer. When I click on it, it prompts for a login. This makes me think I can access the content from my computer. Do you have any insights into whether I can use my current setup with PodBean, or will I have to suck it up and install the app? Okay, so to answer the question, there is like at the top, if you go to zomiaone.com, at the top, there's the hamburger menu, right? The 3 bars. You can click on that, and I moved it up to the top, which I guess I should have done that before, but I moved it at the top where it just under the search bar, it will actually show you, it'll give you a couple of the options, which I need to add more options because there's only a $2 and a $5 option right now. And a lot of people have expressed wanting to give more, which I am honored by. But it says join the Zomia One Underground and get exclusive content. And then it says select plan. And there's a little drop down menu where you can choose which one you want. And then just you can click buy now. And that will get you hooked up with the plan. So it is there. I'm looking at it right now. But I had it I think I might've had it buried and I had to move it up. Partly because admittedly, and this was not right of me to do, honestly. I don't blame anyone but myself. I was expecting a lot of people to jump on the app, and I understand why people don't want to jump on the app. That's been one of the number one things that people have emailed me about. I kind of thought it was perfect timing because I figured a lot of people were using Pocket Casts, and when Pocket Casts updated their UI, everybody was running away, and that seemed very apparent online, and they still are. And I was like, okay, well, here's a chance for you to try out a new podcast app as well at the same time, a podcast app that works very well, and it has the features that I cared about within Pocket Casts, honestly. So now to answer that, or to go on from that, like how to... You can, if you have the PodBean app, it's very easy to sign up for premium because when you go to Zomia One in the PodBean app at the top, it'll say go premium right when you're looking at the episode list. So, I mean, that is definitely the easiest way to go about it. But I understand why not everybody's going to go about it that way. Now, as far as getting things onto your iPod, you can, from the website, you can download the episodes. Okay, like right from the website, as soon as you log into PodBean. And I've heard also from other people that like PodBean, when you create a PodBean account, I didn't even think about this because when I was going through the process, I was setting up the podcast Zomia One. I was setting up the network. And so, yeah, I created a PodBean URL. It looks like PodBean might force you to create a URL for yourself no matter what, even if you're not going to like actually release podcasts on PodBean yourself. If anyone wants to give me any further feedback on that, I looked into it a little bit, and I don't know if everybody, if others are having a different experience than what I saw. But but you might have to go through that process. I understand that it's a pain in the ass. But again, all of this makes everything a lot easier, a lot less expensive as far as, expenses for keeping everything running. There's just so many advantages for me to go through PodBean, even compared to Patreon, though Patreon had plenty of advantages. And in fact, I mean, really, like a lot of the people who, that were like, oh, Stanley, could you please come up with an alternative for PodBean and so on, or come up with an alternative for Patreon? I was saying, look, the reason I didn't leave Patreon is because Patreon had so many features that just nobody else has. And they made things so easy in many ways for a lot of people. Now, and it's just kind of funny because now I got some people, I mean, there's people who are, just, they don't want to use, and I totally understand that. I'm really not knocking anybody, but it's just like, there's people who are like, well, but I can't use this with my favorite podcast app. And I'm like, well, that's what I was telling you, is that fucking Patreon, was working some magic here, in making everything available the way that they were. And I mean, but there were challenges with that. Like, I would post an episode on Patreon and you wouldn't get it for until 30 minutes later in your RSS feed. And that's horrible. It's where with PodBean, it's instantaneous. Like, it's literally instantaneous. And that's really, really handy. But anyway, look, I left Patreon. I mean, I'm still posting stuff there for a while. And I mean, as long as there's patrons, maybe I'll keep posting. Eventually I might just say, all right, look, folks, I'm not going to post here anymore. You need to come move over to PodBean, because it's already become an afterthought where I'm like, I uploaded to PodBean and it goes everywhere. The premium subscribers get it, the free subscribers get it, and people are already sharing the episodes on Twitter from like iTunes and everything, so it's already there. I mean, all that, great, fantastic, fucking awesome. I'm so glad that that's happening. And I honestly, I'll forget that, oh yeah, I still need to post on Patreon because it's just so goddamn easy on PodBean. I mean, it is really easy because Patreon totally fucks shit up on their site. It's not as intuitive on how to post stuff even on there anymore. It's a real pain in the ass. So anyway, what I would suggest to get stuff on your iPod, went on a bit of a tear there, to get stuff on your iPod, you can download it from the website once you log in and pay via the website, via Zomia1.com. And then you can download episode per episode, and I would assume you just kind of transfer to your iPod. I mean, I'm guessing it's not an iPod Touch. Otherwise, then you could put the PodBean app on there. That'd be a very different story. And I totally respect that you don't listen to shit on your phone. Good for you. And I am not kidding. Like, hell yes. And actually, the woman that asked this question, I mean, she's dynamite. So anyway, yeah, that's what I got for you as far as answers to that. I mean, if everything, honestly, if I felt like this truly, without question, required the PodBean app, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have gone forward with it. I would have just come up with my own solution, my own kit to do it. But because everything can be done through the website and the website alone, I felt very confident, that this is a way, to make sure that everybody can get access to this content. Even if you were somewhere where, say, the where the PodBean app, say, wasn't available in the App Store or whatever that you happen to be using. I know a lot of people that do use like an iPod, or they use just a traditional MP3 player to listen to my content. I'm glad, I made sure that you were able to download it independently from the website. So yeah, that's what I can recommend. I hope that helps. And if anybody's having like a real challenge, do get in touch with me. Even after everything I've said over the past few episodes, do get in touch with me, because I want you to be on board with Zomia One. I really want you to, hear, and so I'll do whatever it takes to make sure that happens. Yeah, you don't have to suck up and just install the app. I don't want that to be the reality. So, okay. All right. So, wow, I got to a lot of what I wanted to get to here. All right, let's get into our album of the week. And like I said, we've really got a doozy here. In fact, something that shocked the hell out of me, and that's, I don't mean to pun there. That wasn't meant to be punny, because the name of the album is Shock. Like literally just that's what came to mind for me, is that it shocked me. Of course, maybe they knew that. There's a lot of puns in using the name Shock, because this is an album by the band Tesla. Now, Tesla's been around for a very long time, probably best known for their song Modern Day Cowboy. And they've been around since the late 80s. still doing music. And in fact, their last album, I think it was Simplicity, did that come out in 2016 or 2013, something like that. I enjoyed that album. This album, this is not, now, I mean, some of their albums, they have shifted from their original sound. Okay. Like Simplicity certainly was not going back to, you know, their classic, like modern day cowboy styled sound, or like even the sound off of Bust a Nut, right? Which is another popular album from them and had another hit, but they just did a cover of the way, was it The Games People Play? I think that's the name of the song. You know, most people think the song is titled Signs because that's like a big part of the chorus. But anyway, Tesla was a big deal for a while. Just a really hardcore, hard act. Not hardcore like they're not Children of Bodom or anything, but you get my point. For what they are, for hard rock, you know, they play it heavy. And even though they have that more hard rock melodic sound, Shock, the album Shock, was actually produced by Def Leppard's very own Phil Collin. And wow, not Phil Collins, Phil Collin. Both very talented, obviously. Phil Collins is fucking amazing. But Phil Collin produced this, and wow, can you hear it? Like, because this, frankly, I mean, it's a Tesla album, and you're hearing the classic Tesla voice, you know, and guitar raunch and everything, but this sounds like a Def Leppard album. And that's what shocked me. That's what, you know, pun intended now. That's what blew my mind, was that it really sounds like a Def Leppard album. And it's great. Like, I mean, I really, really like this album. There's a lot. I mean, almost every song is solid. And who knew Phil Collin was such a great producer? I mean, obviously, Phil Collin is just mimicking the guy that produced the actual Def Leppard albums that everybody remembers, like Adrenalize, Pyromania, and Hysteria, and so on, or at least Hysteria and you know, and Adrenalize. That being Robert Mutt Lange, you know, legendary producer, quite frankly, and one of the ugliest guys in the world. I say that with respect, but because I mean, he still married Shania Twain. Hey, you know, sometimes we ugly guys, we get. Anyway, we get lucky. But yeah, his production style smacks very much of Mutt Lange, and it sounds like a Def Leppard album. So if you really want to hear a new Def Leppard album, go listen to Tesla's Shock. But I mean, it's a great album, and in fact, I wouldn't mind seeing them live, especially if they did. It would behoove them, I think, to perform this album, a lot of this album. Because they, you know, I mean, like really, this is a sound that I think people would really get behind. And I think, yeah, I don't think a lot of people that would go and see a Tesla concert normally, or that would go to like some kind of music festival where like Monsters of Rock Cruise or something like that, where Tesla would normally play. I don't think a lot of people there, I mean, some people there would, but I don't think a lot of people would even know more than 2 or 3 songs by Tesla. And so if people don't know your songs, it's a good idea for you at least to have a really great sound. And this is Tesla sounding better perhaps than they've ever sounded. Granted, I'm a huge Def Leppard fan. I know that's not everybody's flavor, but it's definitely mine. So I was really, really pleased with this. I can't recommend this album enough. I mean, there's points where their lead singer even sounds like, you know, sounds very much like the lead singer from Def Leppard. I mean, really, Jeff Keith sounds like Joe Elliott. It's insane. So, and I imagine Phil Collin probably did some guitar duties on this, which if he did, I mean, it all sounds great. So yeah, check out Tesla Shock. I think you're in for a treat, a surprise, no doubt. I mean, you're definitely in for a surprise. I will tell you this morning, I was able to get my hands. So yeah, check out Tesla's Shock. There's a Target exclusive edition. That's not that big a deal. They just put like a couple acoustic tracks at the end of it. There's not like, a lot of times those extra tracks sometimes, as I've said many times, are like the best songs for the album. You know, for example, Bon Jovi's Have a Nice Day. There's like 3 tracks that are on the Japanese edition. They're the best songs from the entire fucking album. And the album's not bad either. Actually, the album's great. And, you know, to have your best songs be your bonus tracks, even while you still have great songs on the album proper, well, I mean, that happens. But in this case, you don't need that. Just get whatever version you can of it, and you're going to have a great time. I mean, just solid songs from beginning to end on this. But anyway, this morning, I did get my hands on, a day early, I got my hands on Battle Beast's new album, which I will be reviewing certainly next Wednesday. And actually, I might be getting the lead singer. I might be getting her to be on the Hard and Fast podcast here soon. I'm trying to work that out, but very exciting. Anyway, but I will review the Battle Beats album next week. But let's just say I already gave it a good listen while at the gym, and I was not disappointed whatsoever. Holy fuck. So I'll just put it that way, but we'll talk deeper about it on the next Zomia ONE Underground Wednesday Q&A. That's it for your Wednesday Q&A that came out on Thursday. There's a nice little rhyme for you. And I will see all of you. Lots more content to come out throughout March. I know we're already closing in on the end of March, but there's user podcasts to come out. We've got new episodes of Sovereign Trek coming out, all on Zomia ONE. We've got TIE Fighter Renegades coming out, again, all on Zomia ONE. The Hard and Fast podcast is going to premiere this month. Got just tons and tons and tons of content to come out over the next few days. And now there's no limit. I mean, like, there's literally no limits on what I can put out there. So I can put out there's new game talk coming out. We're going to be talking Google shit. I mean, there's so much, like, in a day, I can release multiple episodes without any concerns over any kind of restrictions or anything. And also without any necessarily the, expectations or overload, because if you don't like one show on Zomia ONE Network, you don't have to listen to that one. You can just wait for the next episode to come out. I fucking love it. Running a network. This is what the Man of Tomorrow is meant to do. Anyway, that's it for this episode. I'll see all of you on the other side.